All right, it is time for me to make another video, or I'm ready to make another video. First of all, anybody who watches this, I'm grateful. It's fun. I realize my video quality, my editing, the publicity is absolutely subpar. And for any of you that watch YouTube, you're gonna click away. It's just the way it is. I don't blame you. But if you ever get a chance to see this build, if it gets complete, if it's nice, you'll get to see sort of some of the raw, fundamental things that I did regarding this build. So I got a really interesting piece of wood here. This is obviously 5-6 pieces of plywood that I glued together, and I sanded it. So I've got a die grinder with this attachment here. This is good for like finishing metal. Don't even know what it's called, but it works pretty good on plywood. And so this interesting shape contour, I just used that grinder to just carefully manipulate the material. What I did was I took a piece of plywood and I set it in place and marked and identified where I needed to trim, and I just kind of went layer by layer until it's this. So this ugly little thing is and it's scrap material. Like, I wasn't using a lot. Like, I've got a bunch of little scrap pieces laying around, and this is just some scrap material that I glued together in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 1/2-inch sheet that I ended up modifying at the top here so that the top wall butts up against this, and it's definitely not hyper precision. But this is kind of a cool little piece. Looks like the front end, like the bottom of a ship or something. But this, let's talk about what we got going on here. This piece, I don't know that I will actually glue solid. Maybe I'll glue this piece solid. All of this has been glued. This contours and sort of butts up against the plastic paneling that is the B pillar. The seat belt's just on the inside there. This contours nicely. This is just a 90-degree straight piece, and then I've got a 45 angle coming off of that, and I was able to figure out how to get it all to butt up together. And so this 45's into the enclosure, and then this sort of like locks it in place. If you slide the enclosure back, then this piece will come out. But if the enclosure is butted nice firmly up against this, it all kind of locks together. Under high pressure, will this rattle? Will this work? I don't know. But at the moment, it's removable. Slide the enclosure back, and this just slides off. There's no actual attachment. But it kind of locks in because of this 45. I don't know if you can see it there, but it sort of 45's in, and it locks it in place. So this might work. I may end up not gluing this piece permanently, stain, paint, finish everything, and then just have a handful of screws that this attaches to the enclosure. Or I could glue this piece in, and you would just have to sort of slide the enclosure up and then line everything up and make sure both sides line up. In theory, it could work. Let's see here. But I was really interested to make this video to show you this monstrosity of a piece of wood that, if we do it correctly, I don't know if I can do it with one hand, this guy should slide up in here real nice. Hold the phone. It takes 2 hands, so just bear with me a second here. Bam. So that piece, this sits flush, or the goal is to have it sit flush up against the enclosure, and it contours to the exotic shape that is the headliner that merges into the B pillar of this vehicle. So I'd like to think that it sort of lines up nicely under these conditions. A little bit more sanding would work. What I think I'll do is I might glue this piece to this component here solid, so that it all comes in and out as one piece. If I can figure out how it all lines up, it should work. So it kind of looks cool on the inside. Let's let you get a look at that. That's kind of cool. It contours nicely. I think that's about where I would want that to sit. Yeah, and so it sort of takes this odd shape here, and then it more or less lines up with everything else. Yeah, so I think that piece is correct. And then this top piece, let me slide it into place. if I can, with one hand, roughly that. And this top piece is definitely not an absolutely perfect fit. And be honest with you, I'm not a perfectionist, and until I know that it doesn't work, or it leaks, or it doesn't sound good, something like that, more or less, at least from the bottom of this section all the way up, we have a sufficient seal. Glue, I should be able to fill in the gaps. And I have essentially walled off this section. Now, this panel on top, I don't have any form of attachment. It's just lightly wedged between the headliner and the enclosure. It fits pretty well. Exactly how to get it to be rigid, I'm not entirely sure yet. Some type of attachment behind that panel to the enclosure that's semi-permanent, and then this top panel will just butt up against and maybe screw onto it. Like I say, at the moment, I'm not intentionally going to glue anything. At this stage, the enclosure's all glued together, but my wall I'd like to be removable. So even if I'm gluing panels together, I'd still like to be able to remove it without totally compromising the vehicle or the enclosure. And I'd like to think I can do that. There's a jankiness here. It doesn't perfectly fit, but that's kind of the solution that I came up with to resolve that. And currently my money is on that will be sufficiently sealed and tight enough that it will work. I guess we'll see. More to follow. Yeah, I wanted to make this video of here's the progress that I made. It's really hot outside, so I don't make a ton of progress during the day. Let's see. I've got some of the paneling cut for the other side, but I haven't really worked on it super hard yet. I'll leave this seat forward. I've got a mess to figure out down here, how to get it to be sufficiently sealed for the intent. So this board, let's see if I can pop it up into place, roughly is going to sit something like that, but obviously sealed something like that. Anyway, it doesn't seal, I don't know. I cut this and I screwed it to this, and that sort of makes a shelf for the front of the enclosure, and it makes a nice little shelf for the enclosure to sit on here, and I think that that's fairly attractive. I'd like to glue it all together, round this over. I will not be gluing this bottom to the enclosure, but the rest of it will. And possibly all of this paneling that's down here is going to get glued or more permanently attached down here. But I think that we'll keep this separate from this, and more or less this will just rest on here. I may have a piece of plywood up here so that there's a joint similar to this. So yeah,